In this video, we're going to have a little talk about how a basic request works to a website or web server, because it's something we can build on. So we're going to start right at the very basics, and then we can build on that in future videos. But you need to have an idea of how a request and response works. So we're going to go through that. Now, there's obviously a lot more to this than what you can see here. So you've got yourself here, so the user or browser, whichever one. And if you go on a website, so let's say you type in google.com into your browser, that's going to make a request. So you are sending a request to the web server that hosts google.com, asking for the files that are needed to display google.com. The web server will check everything, make sure the request is valid. Then it will send back a response. So the response is this pink line here. It will send back a response with the code or the files that are needed for the browser to then interpret that into something that a user can see or view. So that's a very crude way of explaining it. There's a lot more to it in the sense that the web server is assigned an IP. So because we can't remember numbers, humans can't remember numbers as easy as they can remember names. So if we had to remember Google's IP along with loads and loads of others, it just wouldn't happen. We wouldn't remember them. So what will happen, I mean, Google probably won't because it's quite a common website, but if you were to visit a website that isn't that common, what happens is typically when you send a request, it will go to a DNS server or multiple DNS servers. So let's say you type in I don't know, johnscars.com, and it will query. So before it gets to the web server, it needs to find out where the web server is, what the IP address of the web server is. And the browser's not going to know that. It's not something that just magically appears to the browser. So it's going to go to DNS servers, and it's going to ask. It's going to ask them if they know the IP address of johnscars.com. I think it was John Car. Yeah, that one, whatever it was I said. And then the DNS server, if it knows it, it's going to send back something that says, yes, I know that the IP address is this, and then the browser will use that IP address. But that's something that goes on behind the scenes, and isn't something that the typical user is going to know, because it's something that happens without you knowing. I will do another video on DNS and how that works, but all you need to know at the moment is that when you go on a website or type a website into your URL bar in the browser, it's going to make a request, and if everything's okay, it's going to send back a response. So we've got this. I've got this here. So this is a request to a a Portswigger lab room, whatever you want to call it. This is a request. So when I clicked on the login page here, you can see that here, it made a request to the web server to return the files and everything needed to display the login page. So you can even see it at the top here, it says request. The response from the web server is on this side. You can see response. And this is everything that is needed to display that. So if I click render here, you can actually see the website. And this is what you'd see in your browser. But this is the front end code. So this here will contain HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and this is what you see here. So it's not overly complicated at the moment. Like I said, there's a lot that goes into it, but for the time being, you've got requests and you've got responses. The request is what the browser sends. The response is what the web server will send back in response to the request. Now, in the request, you have all these here as well. So these are what are called headers. Now, this top line here this get is a method. So it's the method of the request basically, and you have various different types. You've got get, post, put, delete, patch, trace, options, and they all mean different things. So for example, if you were to use options, the response would literally send back what the different type of methods you could use are. So if a server for a certain request only accepted get and post requests, when you sent an option request, it would return back saying that it will only accept get and post requests. It wouldn't accept anything else. So in theory, then if you tried to send a request that had a delete method, it wouldn't happen. It's not something that's supported. I'm not going to go into it too much because again, I'll make another video about the different methods. But the two most common ones are get and post. Get, I mean, they're quite self-explanatory, but if you were, for example, requesting something from a web server, it would be get because you're trying to get that. If you are posting something, so that could be a login form where you type in a username and password, that would then be a post request because you're sending something. Same as a comment. A forum where you actually can input something and send it off, that would then become a post request potentially. It depends on how it's been set up, but so for example, I clicked my account and I can show you that. I've just clicked it. Oh, hang on, is it working? Oh yeah, sorry, it's here. So it made a get request to my account, which then forwarded me to here. Now, if I filled this in, if I said, I don't know, just typed a load of rubbish in, let's say, for example, and clicked log in, this would be a post request because I'm posting this to this web server. So we know that's invalid because it was a load of rubbish I typed in. So you can see here, method post request. So post request, we sent a post request to the login page, and you can see here that we sent username was this JF blah blah blah, and the password was FDJ blah blah blah. So a post request will have a body, what's called. So all this is going to be in the header. This is going to be in the body. Post requests will have a body, get requests won't. So this is get request, there's no body. Click on another one. You can see all of the get requests that I click on will not have a body, but all the post requests, I mean, these aren't to do with PortSwigger. Well, they potentially are to do with PortSwigger because they could just be external sites or resources that they've requested. But post request, you can see, will have a body, which is all this here. I will do videos on headers. Headers are important. They're basically rules or guidelines for browsers. So, for example, you've got a cookie session here. Now, when you log in, I mean, it's not necessarily when you log in, but let's say when you log in, because HTTP is stateless. So if you log into a website, it's not going to remember who you are, but a cookie allows that. So a cookie is something that links you to an account. So when you log in, you're automatically assigned a cookie, and it should be a random cookie, which will be different for every session. And that enables you to be stateful, so you can be logged in using this cookie. So when you log into an account, every request you send will have the same cookie session until you log out, and the web server can verify that. So the web server will go, okay, well, that's fine, they sent the correct cookie, so I can send a response back. As soon as you get rid of that cookie, or that cookie changes and it's not what the web server expects, then it will go, no, that's the wrong session. We're not going to send you back the information, or we'll send you an error, like an unauthorized error or something like that. There's multiple others. So for example, you've got accept, so this will tell the web server what the browser is going to accept. So text / HTML, you can have JSON, there's loads of different other ones. You've got a user agent here, so this will just tell the web server, what you're using, which isn't always correct, if I'm honest. Content type, origin, so where it's come from. There's loads of others, which I will go through some of the top ones in another video, because headers are quite important when it comes to security. You can get headers that will stop certain pages from being used in iframes, which could be used for clickjacking. You've got other headers that can help prevent XSS. So there's quite a few headers that stop JavaScript being injected from external sources. But this should hopefully give you a basic idea of how a request to a website works, and that's at the moment that's all you need to know, just to grasp the basics. So you go on a website, you type it in, you send a request. It's quite self-explanatory. You're requesting that website. A website is going to be stored on a server. It sends a response back. So a web server can be Windows or Linux. A lot of the time they're Linux, not always, but the majority of them seem to be Linux. So you could even create a virtual machine that runs Linux and set that up to be a web server. And all a web server is just a computer that has the software on it to allow it to publish stuff online. That's all it is. You've got email servers, storage servers. There's lots of different types. So on this web server that you have here, you have just potentially got the files that are needed that contain the code to display the website. That's all. And it's the browser that sends a request to a certain page, and the web server will go, oh, okay, so I know that I've got that page, login page or index page, whatever it is. I know that this browser here has requested it and everything looks okay, so I'm going to send that code and file along to the browser, and the browser's going to set that up so that the user can actually view it as a website within their browser. There's multiple methods, like we talked about. There's multiple methods to send a request: get, post, put, delete, patch, options, trace, loads of different types. But in this case, we're just going to go with a simple get. So it sends a get request to here, asking for the login page. It sends a response, which is going to be the login page. You type in your username, type in your password. It's then going to send a post request back to the web server, and it's going to say, I've put in this username and I've put in this password. Is it correct? The web server is going to search the database and it's going to go, yep, that's fine. Username and password are in my files. I'm then going to send you a response back along with a cookie, so that then every request that browser makes along with that cookie session. So if the browser sends, so they've been logged in, they've been accepted, they've been sent a cookie session, they're going to send a request to, I don't know, a logged in page along with that cookie. The web server is going to check the cookie and go, okay, yeah, that's the one I assigned to that user or that session, so that's fine. I'm going to then send it back to the browser, so that they can view the page that they need to view. So there's not an awful lot to it to understand the basics. It's requests and responses. And burp, which I'll do a video on, burp is something that sits in between. So let's just change this slightly, just so you have a rough idea. So we're going to say burp. So burp is a program that you install, and I will do a video on how to install it and how to set it up, because you do need to set it up. It doesn't take long at all. Just bear with me while I sort this out. I'm hoping you do sort of get the idea by now. Right, so this is what burp does. So as soon as you start burp up, the browser will go to the web server, but it goes via burp. So it goes through burp, then it goes to the web server. Whatever the web server sends back, it then sends it back, and then burp gets in the way, and then forwards it back to the browser. So that is why let's just set this up a little bit better. So that is why, for example, hang on a minute. AC8, where's 8? Goodness me, there's a lot of rubbish here. ACE81 F, yeah. So we're going to add this to scope, and all it does is just, I can use this then to get rid of the rest of the rubbish that is in here. Again, I'll do a video on this. So if I were to click home, everything that is related to me clicking home gets shown through burp because it goes through burp. So this is the request I made to home. So you get status 200 OK. There's different statuses, which again I'll go through in another video. And this is basically what you see here. This is the code, the front end code needed. I don't know if it takes a bit of time. The render part of burp is a bit slow sometimes. Okay, I'm not going to bother. But anyway, it's the same as in here. You can even see the writing. It's perhaps fair to say. So if I click this post here, you can then see we made a get request to that post, which may load. Yeah, so there you go. So it's the same. So that's all burp does. So hopefully that gives you an insight onto how websites are requested and how they respond. And we'll build on this in videos as we go along.